Hello everybody and welcome to 3D animation with Blender, rigging animation with Leon. So here we are, week 4, already end of July here, but again, want to remind everyone if you're joining us for the first time, week 4, you can go back and watch all weeks 1, 2, and 3 and check those all out, and then you can catch up. So, just sit back, enjoy, you can rewatch these. So don't worry about taking notes, and we'll go from there. Just want to thank all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, then we have our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, the Wasaga Beach Public Library. On each of these computers, we have, there's digital arts computers. We have 2 computers at each of the library partners, 27-inch iMacs. They're loaded with the Blender software. It's also free, so you can download it on your computer if you haven't done so. And with reopening now, you can access these computers at the libraries, and you can work right there on Blender. So everything you're doing, you can open these tutorials up, these videos, and you can then rewatch and follow along. So yeah, without any further ado, let me pass it over to Leon, and he'll take you on the rest of this journey. Here we go.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom. Yes, welcome back to the final week for the Blender 3D animation. I hope that everything that we have done the last 3 workshop help you to start to animate your character if you have one. If you just want to know how the process is, that's okay too. It's always good to know like how things are working. Yeah, so let's just start working on it so we can get everything's done and animated this today. And hopefully, I'm hoping that we can get rendering. I will not render my scene. I'm probably gonna. What we're going to do is we're going to Playblast the animations. That means that's not like a final render, but the thing is, like, it takes a long time to render the whole scene, the whole animations with all the full background and lightings and everything. That's just able to do it today. It will take like a whole 2 days sometimes, depending on how fast your computer is to render. Yes, the Playblast was just a quick render to show your how your animation play in real time. Because if you play it with the render just normally, if you press spacebar, you can play the animation, right? So if you press spacebar, you can see how the animation work in Blender. But you have to keep in mind that it's not playing at the real time. So if you go up here on the very top here, you'll see the frame per second, and you see this is not bad. It's like about 24 frames per second, which is very good, which is what we want. But like once you have because everything is still in the, what you call it, it's not, we don't have any in between yet. So, but once we have all the in betweens and everything, that frame per second, when we're playing it in real time in Blender, that will go down and normally go to like 12 seconds per frame per second. Sometimes it even go to like 8 frames per second, which is not something that you want to see, because you can't see. Well, it's a proper frame per second. That means when you play it in a normal like a QuickTime or window media players, like in real time, it will not look correct, and your timing will be off too, right? So anyway, so last week we have this character going down, and then I'm just gonna finish this with one more pose, which is like I'm going to have him settle. In animations, once you action, characters are doing actions, or not just character, anything sorry, any objects or anything that moving, you generally want to have that objects or characters or anything that's moving before they stop, you want to have a settle. What we call that means is like you don't want to be a complete dead stop. Like when you're driving a car, when you press a brake, car was slowly slowing down, and then before it go to a stop, it's just kind of like a settle in that. So like depending on how fast you're driving and how fast you're braking, settling of the object animations will be different. So something that you think about when you're doing animations, because if you just have nothing, will stop dead right away. It's just like it's because of the gravity, right? Like because you can't have that really dead stop and gonna break a bone or something like that, or you're going to break. So things is to help you readjust your position. Yeah, that's a more in-depth animations tutorial than which we're not going to cover in this. I'm just gonna have just mentioning it, so it's something that probably good to know if learning how to animate. So I'm just gonna have him settle to our positions here. Again, we are moving the bone to that's closer. Hit Y in the Y-axis. Bring this back down. Okay. All right, so that's okay. Let's make a keyframe. And that will be the final pose. Perfect. So 100 frame that we need for him. And maybe add another. Have a slow. But have the bodies down. Okay, so that's good. All right, so we have all the pose for our character. Now we're going to put the in-between. I think that's good. Right, so I was going to say something, but I forget. Anyway, let's have the character. Let's in between the character now. So now you're done all your posing, and oh right, just a quick tip. this is like one way of doing animations. Like there's different way of doing animations. Everybody has a different style, but this is how I animate. It might there is a different way to animate that, and depending on what you doing. If you're, let's say, animating for, let's say, a video game, there will be a lot of posts that you will reuse in order to create a certain set of animation. So let's say this is like the what you call it, like this is like the default pose. So the character, before it start doing any animations, this is the pose that your character want to start with. So in video games, usually like there's a certain this is more relevant for a video game because you're reusing a lot of the posing of your character. And in order to help you to get easier, it's if you go to the right here, you get the pose library. This is a tip there. And then if you click new, right, you got the new pose library there. So we can make a pose and then add it in this pose library, and then we can move it anywhere and then just click that to start to get it. So a good example here. So this is the pose. Let's say this is the pose that you want to keep reusing, or you're thinking that you'll be reusing it again in the future. So if you go to the pose library, you click on add new, and then if you click on the plus symbol here, pose add new, you get the main thing here. You can change the name by double clicking on it. You can change that sitting pose, something like that, right? So let's say somewhere in your animation, let's say in frame 140, you want to have the character sitting again, right? So instead of copying and then moving here, this is a quick way of doing it. It's just like you just click on the sitting pose, and then you just click on that apply pose. As you can see is, and then you can just key it. There you go. You can get that really quickly. So the pose library is definitely a very useful tool if you're thinking about reusing a lot of your pose in order to make the animations in the future. So if you've been if you're working, like, let's say in a very long shows, like a series shows, if you talk, let's say Paw Patrol, right? It's a 3D series that have many seasons. So if you're working like in a shows that have a long seasons like that, most of the time they probably have a libraries of different character poses that you can use and just apply it, right? So that will save a lot of time for the animators to instead of like us moving each poses one by one, like we did, like I did before, right? Like moving and then make sure you post the key and stuff like that. All you need to do is just go to the post library and click on it, and it's voila, it's done. So you don't need to do anything else. So you just it's the post is already there. That will save a lot of time during the production process, especially in the TV shows, which is you generally don't have. You have a set of quotas a week that you have to do, that you have to meet in order to get the show ready to air in every week or something like that. So yeah, so this is kind of like a easy, simple that Blender has that you can try to use it if you're something is probably for short films or anything like that that you're going to do. You don't really use it that much, but in the full productions that using the same characters over and over again, this is really helpful to have. Anyway, so that's the one thing that I was going to tell you before I forget. Just to have something in your mind in the future if you decided to go to work in the animation industry. Is definitely something that good to know to have. Blender is becoming more popular for a 3D animation show. So like there's a lot more studios out there that use Blender. So it's definitely something good to know. Okay, so right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to select all, and then we're going to right click and going to interpolation mode. We're going to Bezier. Now, that's essentially is your computer, the computer, the Blender will try to make in between as best as possible, giving the ease in and ease out. So this is where it's going to take a bit of time for you. If you want to get your characters really well animated, this is where you're going to do the nitty-gritty details animations in this part. Of course, the posing too is very like you need to get a really good, takes a bit of time to do it, but it's also like you need to do it here too. So let's see how Blender do it. Okay, well, that's not too bad. But remember, if you go up here, check out the frame per second here, you can see, oh, it's playing 24 frame per second, but it's kind of slow, right? So we, and some part it doesn't play in real time, which is not something that we want to do. So this is where the next step that what we're going to do is to do the Playblast. Before we tweak any of this curve, we'll see like which area that you think we need to improve on. Okay, so Playblast. So you click the which windows that you want to Playblast on. Like this is the camera view. So I like to Playblast this. I haven't animated the camera yet, so that's another thing. Before, I think last workshop, I put a keyframe on the camera, but I decided to just remove the camera and then just do a simple camera track out later on. And like, we don't really need to be fancy about it. The camera is but camera is very important to do first if you want to do like an establishing shot, or like if you have a more complicated camera work, then you have to work with the camera first before you can start animating the character. But for like a simple zoom in or simple tracking in, track out, that's our panning left and right. That's, you generally don't need to set up your camera right away. At least in my opinion, you can do that later on. But yeah, so if you're doing like a circling 3D rotation in a camera for an establishing shot at the very beginning, and then you want to have the camera set up and animated first before you start the animations of the character. Right, Playblast. So click on the window, and then if you go to the right here, you go to output property here. That looks like a printer. And in the output, this is called a TMP. That's just like a Blender path direct that you want to change that into, like, make a folder somewhere, and then let's delete this. So make a folder somewhere, and then let's say workshop 3, you make a folder, Playblast, click on that. And then let's see, just name it Playblast. Okay, and accept that. So as you can see, the output already changed that. and then make sure you go to file format. Okay. And then for Playblast, I usually use the FFmpeg video. Okay. So, and then you go to encoding and just go to MP4. Or depending on what, are you using a Mac or like a Windows? Like, you can use the AVR or QuickTime, but MP4 generally can play with both of them. And then just make sure the coding H.264. This is like the compressions of it. It doesn't really just go to good is fine, and keyframe intervals fine, and we don't need audio because we have no audio, but you can add, like if you have an audio, you can definitely import it as well. So this is all good in here, the output. And then what we're going to do is we're going to here, the tree line here, it's basically the view select and pose here. Click on that. You want to go to view, and then you want to go viewport render animation. Okay, so it will render in real time. There's 150 frame as in the middle here. You can see the number there. That's 56, 7, 60 frame. So, and because it's rendering in the camera view is as a cutoff there, so you didn't see. I probably should just render it in. There you go. That's done rendering. Then we want to go to the top here, render, view, render, view animation. And Blender will open the Blender player. And then you can see it. As you can see, that's going down is pretty slow at the very beginning. We might want to speed it up a little bit. And as you notice that there's no textures because we're rendering it without any texture. Right, so this is just to give a really fast, and then if you want to, the Playblast will still going to play it in real time, even if you have a textures in it. But obviously, like if you Playblast with a texture on, it will take a little bit longer to do it. But in this case, we just want to see the movement of the character. So this is one of those things that we can play around with. Like maybe instead of going up like that, we want to have the character, we want to put an in-between somewhere here. And then this is where we turn on the automatic keyframe. So we don't need to worry about inserting keyframes every time. So in here, I want to change the posing a little bit, delay that, and then rotate Y. Rotate Z. So instead of going up right away, I want him to make a bend just to give move forward a little bit. All right, so as you can see, so instead of just from one pose and then he just gonna get up, I want him to actually leaning forward before he go up. That's much better. And here, 27, we want to have even more leaning forward. To just have the hand still in the hand is still in on his knee in order to help him get up to support his weight. Rotate Y. Okay. So rotate Y. So 29, I want this to be already in here. If you remember, I'm not putting any, I don't press any keyframe for adding keyframe because it's automatically key. So let's go up a little bit down there. There you go. Now that's much better. A bit fast going up. So maybe we'll move the end there. Let's select, let's zoom in. Let's change that into a dope sheet for now. It's easier to see our keyframe in dope sheet. So it's too fast. So I'm going to move this keyframe. Oh, it's a bit more like, let's say 34. Still a bit fast. I'm gonna move this 30 and then have 34 and 38. 38, bring it to 42. There you go. Much better. It's not going up too fast like he's gonna break his arm or something. So in here, we'll bring this down. Bring his hand down. Rotate sets. Rotate Y. Let's have this bending a little bit more. There. As you can see, he's getting up more natural than before. It's like when the computer just have one pose here and another pose here, and the computer just goes straight for one pose to the other. It's really, there's no, I guess there's no, it doesn't look natural for the characters to just get up like that, right? Because when you try to get up, you generally leaning forward and then try to help yourself getting up, which is a natural way to getting up from sitting positions. So this is the kind of thing that you have to think about when you're animating. You don't want to be like a robot just going up really quickly. As you can see here, it's that little the feet is not planted. It's going off the stairs, which you don't want. Then you have to fix that. Again, this is the detail animations that you have to do. Maybe I'll move the just make sure it's not. It's still sliding, which I don't like. You want to have. So this is where we need to go to the graph editor. Okay, so it's okay. It's pretty flat. Oh, let's see that a little bit. Let's move that forward. As you can see that the right feet there is planted. Before, if you see the right feet is moving, right? So let's see. It's sliding. And we don't want that. So that's why I move that sliding. If I, let's say in here, you can see this leg is also moving if we move the graph here. So we want to have the same. So it's not moving that much. So it's not sliding. Okay, so another thing that we can do is instead of going slow, going down, and then going down fast, let's see if we can speed up. Let's see if we can speed up. Again, I'm going to go back to the dope sheet just so I can see the keyframes better. So I want to move this keyframe here closer. Let's say in the middle there. Right, so you can definitely improve these animations more. We can add more, let's say, let's just add something to make it in animations before you do the actions, you want to do what they call it an anticipation. So before you take a step, usually you want to have your body bend down a little bit before you prepare yourself forward. So the same thing here. Maybe what we can do is we're going to select all of this, and then in 45, This is 42. I would say 42. So maybe in 47, 48, I'll add another keyframe. So I don't want him to move yet, so I'm gonna copy and paste the frame from frame 42. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little bit different pose, which is instead of him going straight walking, I'm going to have him going down a little bit to anticipate of taking the step down. Maybe start taking his legs up here. And in here, he will extend his right leg. So in 60, I'm going to copy the frame 50 and then put it in 6. Oops. Copy that, put it in the frame 60 because I want him to have some weight of going down a bit more. Yes. And then in frame 65, we want to have the same thing as frame 60. And copy it and put it in frame 65. And then we'll have him just starting to walk down in. And there you go. Bit better. We can work on that, the breakdown between the two poses when he's going down there. Maybe we can have it instead of like staying here too long. We'll bring it closer so it doesn't. There you go. Maybe one more frame to the side. Let's bring him up more. There you go. That's a little bit bounce up, and it's gonna go down the stair. As you can see, like I added a little bit of more in between, because you don't want to trust the computer 100%. So you want to make sure that you see if it's natural or not for you to have the character this a little bit too stretch. Let's see. I'm just going back and forth to the graph editor and make sure that. And if you look here, you can get the locations. I want to select. You can hide everything else except the one that you want to see, which is locations C. Yeah. So bring this down. Okay, so that's a little bit of the quick adding in between, and then adding a little bit of breakdown between the two poses in order to make it natural. Obviously, you can. This is where you're going to spend a lot of your time to polish your animation, to just make sure that is smooth and there's no jerky movements, and make sure your feed is not sliding all over the place. That's the one thing that it's going to take a bit of time to do. But unfortunately, we don't have that time. So I'm going to move. This is good. I'm going to Playblast this really quickly. Let's see if I'm gonna do it here with this Playblast view. Viewport. No, this one. Sorry. If I want to Playblast this side, then I have to go to this view. Viewport, render animations. And we'll do a quick. If you have a fast computer, this is gonna go flying rendering. So definitely, you need the better your computer, the faster you'll be working in 3D. But it's not necessarily need to, but definitely help. So perfect. Let's render 150. So we're going to render view animation. Oh, I'm not sure if you can see the view animations in real time. My bad, my mistake. I have to share you the screen, but like I just realized that the screencast doesn't really show you the view render. Anyway, so if you do that, you can view it in real time, and then you can make sure your timing is working, your posing is everything is working before you start rendering it with textures. So now let's say this is really good, and I'm happy with it, and I like to render it. Before we render it, we'll make sure that let's animate the camera really quickly. So I'm just going to make sure it's camera view. Okay. So in here we'll start. Let's say we're start closer. Start from here. Okay, and location rotation. Oops, wrong one. Make sure you on the object mode, click the camera before you can location rotation, and then the let's say it's frame 20. The same thing, location rotation. Let's go to the dope sheet. Okay, here. And then it's, frame 30. Oops. Delete keyframe. $30, $40. We want to zoom out to have, and because I have my keyframes on, automatic keyframe, that's automatically keyframe the camera, and then have him down 75. Bring it down. And then let's say go to frame 150. We're going to have the camera going this way and zoom out a little bit. Rotate that. All right, so let's save that. The camera is really quick camera. It's movement there. It's nothing fancy. So that's good. All right, so next one is to render. Now, the same thing here, to go to the output. If you want to do the final render, obviously, like you want to output it, then before you do that, I'm saving this into a different save as. Okay, so I'm going to turn on all the other. Let's see if we can change that into the renders here, and then we're gonna name it walking down accept. So we want to change that into a PNG. PNG or Targa is the two I suggest that if you want to render your final render, the PNG or Targa is the two file extensions that you use. The reason why is then you can have the alpha channel here, which is very important, and then it's a more higher quality image, and then you can bring everything into your post productions software like After Effects, or even in Blender. You can do that too. You can render it in PNG and combine everything together with similar what you can do with After Effects or other software for post-production. So this is good. The output is good. So, and then the render engine will be Eevee sampling 64. The render sampling per pixel 64. The higher it is, the longer it will take render. So maybe let's put it 150 for the render. Ambient occlusion, you want to have that on. It's not the volumetrics, everything that is from the setup that we have before. We just make sure that you have everything set up. So render animation. So instead of going here, going to the view, and then the viewport render image, you want to go to render animation. Just make sure save again. Let's see how it goes. As you can see, it's rendering, which takes a long time because it will for the image to come out, because my computer is not exactly the best for processing it, or processing animation. Actually, just I'm just gonna close this. Hopefully it doesn't crash at me. But that's basically what it is. It's just gonna take a long time, depending on how powerful the computer is, and it will take a bit of time for you to render frame. And remember, you have 100 frames for this animation. So if each frame takes about like an hour to render, then you get like 150 hours to. And some frame, depending on how complex the angle is, it will take longer to render because there's a lot more objects, informations that render. So that's something that's for you to keep in mind. Another way to do a faster render is another trick is you render the characters separately, the animations, and then you render the background separately. So if your background is not moving, if let's say you don't have any camera movements in the background, it's definitely better to just render that one background on its own, and then you render your characters moving animations on a separate render. So therefore, and then after that, that's when that's why the PNG with the alpha is really important to render, or target that have the alpha. Then you can combine both of images and animations together in After Effects, and you can render that faster with Blender instead of rendering all the image together. So let's say if we can render this. And just render image. Not sure if we can be able to get the look, the final image look in this workshop. But if you look at the previous workshop, you see like how the final render looked like. I should have rendered it before just so I can show it to you guys. But unfortunately, I forget to do that. But yeah, so everything, the settings and everything that you just need to know where to do the settings, and then you can do the rendering on your own time. Yes, that's it for this part of the Blender 3D animation. I really hope that I'm able to teach you and help you to understand a Blender using Blender to do animation. Obviously, there's different way of how to approach it, and as you get to know, and I'm just hoping that this course, this workshop, will help you to start doing the animations for yourself. And once you get used to it, then you can play around with however that works with you to do the Blender animation. Thank you very much for um, watching and following the workshop with me. And I really hope that I can see you guys for the next one, or maybe in person sometimes in the future. Thank you again, and I'll see you later.
Perfect. Thanks, Leon. I'm just putting the information here for the email. So you can send Leon a question or myself. So here's leontbmcs@gmail.com, and also myself, Tom, at tbmcs.ca. And just like what Leon said is we hope that we'll be in person doing some workshops in the fall. So we're hoping to start some stuff September or October, and we'll continue the journey. So we can we'll have laptops, and then we'll be able to get together at the library partners to do some of these in person. So we can continue that hands-on journey as well. But please be sure you can rewatch all of these four, and really have a great review of it, and you can start, stop, pause, and so on. We'll be posting everything up on our YouTube channel in the coming few days too for all of July. So thanks again. Be sure to check out all our upcoming workshops. We'll have Leon back to continue more with Blender and to expand your knowledge with his knowledge. So it's really appreciate Leon for taking the time to do these workshops. And in the meantime, everyone have a great rest of the day. And I'll just finish off by thanking all our library partners. So we have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library, and the Canada Council for the Arts for making this project happen. Enjoy and have a good weekend. Take care.